Hi, and welcome back to the Shamrock Quilt Studio. Today we're going to talk about the status of our project on Applique, Miss Kelly. We've come a long way, but we did run into some problems, so join us after this and we'll talk about what happened and how we're going to work around it. And welcome back to the Shamrock Quilt Studio. Hi everyone, today we're talking about Miss Kelly and some problems that I ran into. When we did this project, my initial plan was to hand quilt a grid in the background of the applique and leave the applique pieces untouched. I considered putting an echo quilting right around the applique pieces, but I wasn't really sure how that was going to go. And if you remember in our previous videos, I was carefully thinking about how close that grid should be, how small it should be, because the more quilting you have in a project, the more the unquilted pieces tend to pucker and gather. And that's one of the choices that you deal with in trying to figure out how much is enough and how much is too much. Well, as you recall, I was quilting this on the Grace frame. And the Grace frame rolls up the project as you go. So when it first came off the frame, and it's been a while since I've used the frame, I was shocked, number one, about the amount of, how would you call it? It was a little scary, to be honest, because it came off and everything was rolled up. And if you've ever noticed something that's been rolled a while, the underside, the smaller side of it gets really, really tiny, and the outside is a little bit bigger. So when you flatten it out, it just looks completely out of whack. So that was concerning to me. But I let it hang up a while. In fact, we went out of town overnight and I just left it hanging so it could kind of relax the fibers and they would go back to its normal positioning and habitat, so to speak. And when I got back, it was better, but still there were problems. And I want to point out a few of those to you that we can still see today. And let me back up a little bit. You'll notice here on the border between what is quilted and what is not quilted, how we have these puckers. They're almost like gathers, but they're not quite as big as gathers. They're more like puckers, and that's because you've drawn up part of the fabric, but you've left the other fabric loose, and it's still at its normal size. When you're quilting, it tends to kind of create the same action as shrinking it a bit. So we've drawn it up in here where we've done the quilting, but not on the borders. So we know we're going to have to do something with that. I'm auditioning a little scallop, kind of like a clamshell on this, to see if I like it. Then the other problem was, in addition to the borders, the applique pieces, the big ones, did the same thing. Now, I didn't notice it so much in the small little flowers, and I think that's because they're fairly small little pieces. So the quilting around it versus the quilting underneath the applique doesn't really make that much of a difference. But the bigger pieces here in the flower, in the birds, in the vase particularly, looked problematic. So I had to come up with a solution, number one, to draw in those pieces in the applique, and also to be able to have it look right, because it just looked a little off. So what I decided to do was to go in and add some quilting in the applique pieces. And I started in the flower on the top. And I did applique on this one, just on the outside of this pink flower, so I could kind of begin to draw it in. And then on the others, I did one seam between each petal of the flower on one of the pieces. And I didn't do both sides. I just did one. And then I did decide to do an echo stitch just outside of the piece. So it is, I would say, somewhere between 1/8 of an inch and 1/16 of an inch away from the edge of the applique. It's very, very close. And that was enough, as you can see, to draw it in and let it lay flat. I did the same thing with the leaves here and the base of the flower. Still got a little bit of a pucker here, but it's fairly small because that's a small piece. I skipped the yellow flowers and the small leaves because right now that doesn't seem to be a problem. But I did have a problem with the birds and the vase. So I went down to my next biggest problematic area and worked on the vase. And I did the echo all around. I did a row of stitching here where the green meets the blue on both ends. And then I stitched around the orange flowers. That was better, but I still had the bulk of this area here. And I tried a couple of different things. I was trying to put vertical lines because I wanted to put a vertical line here and here. That probably would have been enough, but it just looked odd. And then I tried a horizontal line, and I'm not super crazy about it, but I think it'll work. But what really did the trick is I put some little curved lines here and here that mimic the design of the fabric. And that was what did it, and I was happy with the way it looked and decided to move on. And then finally I worked on one side of the bird. I've done this one completely, and it's mostly echo around, and then I treated the feathers the same way that I did the flower up top. And then I put a row of stitching here and here on that top layer of the birds so that it kind of accentuates them but also holds them down to the batting and the backing. And I think that did the trick on the bird. So I'm working on the second one now. And you can see here, see the difference here? There's a little bit of play in that fabric versus here, there's a lot of play in that fabric. So that was a choice that I made early on that I thought was going to work well, but in reality, putting those fabrics together, it was not sufficient quilting to be compatible with the grid. I think that's the easiest way to explain it. And I wanted to mention also that you'll kind of see the same thing when you work on a quilt maybe that's scrappy and you're using some fabrics that are 100% cotton and some fabrics that are part cotton, part poly, that those all cotton fabrics will shrink to a higher degree than the blend cottons. So the blend cottons tend to have a puffy look because there's more fabric there. That all cotton has shrunk up and that part cotton has only shrunk up partially. It's a great technique if you're looking for that look, but if you're not, just be aware of it. So right now, I have the second bird to finish. I don't think I'm doing anything with the yellow flowers. I don't think I'm doing anything with the little drop flowers. I may decide to put a small little stitch here between the blue and the pink, but that's going to be it. And then the matter of how I'm quilting the borders. And the borders are going to have to be quilted a little heavier than I initially wanted to because we've got so much extra fabric. So I'm going to take it down and try to show you a little closer what those stitches look like, and on the bird particularly, how the one bird that's done looks compared to the other bird. So give me just a second. Okay, so we've got it down off the board, and I'm gonna just try to hold this up so you can see it there. And then on the birds, the one on your right has been completely done. The one on your left is only partially done. The feathers are almost complete, but the purple part of the bird has not been touched at all. So you can kind of see, I think, the difference in how those look. Overall, I'm still very happy with this. It is coming along very well. I would like to be able to get the blue marks out of it now and maybe give it a little bit of a press, but I don't want to press it until we do get those blue marks out. And I'm not sure I want to take the blue marks out until at least I'm finished with the quilting here on the primary part of the design. I think once we finish here, we can take them out and press it a bit and then work on the quilting. And I wanted to show you too the little design that I'm considering for the border. And I want to thank my husband for that. I was sitting here trying to figure out what I was going to do. And I knew we needed something with some type of curve in it because we've got so many straight lines in the background of the design. And I was sitting here and I said, well, I'd like to do like a little scallop around it. But what am I going to use as a pattern for the scallop? And I'm thinking and he said, well, how about a little half circle kind of thing, a little scoop. And I'm still thinking, I said, well, maybe I've got a protractor and I can use that. I can't find that protractor anywhere. So what I ended up deciding to do is cut a circle out of just a piece of cardboard, a little lightweight cardboard. And I drew an X in it to determine where the center was and also where half of the circle would be. So I've got that drawn on. So now I can take that piece of cardboard and lay it right on the seam. And let me stick a pin in this and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. This pin is not going to be long enough for the actual tracing of the design, but I think to be able to see it, it will work. I punched some holes in it. And like I said, I can line up the little markings to sit right on the seam line. And then I can trace that semicircle onto the fabric with some tailor's chalk. Or if you have a chalk quilting marker, you can use that. And as is almost always the case, I'm using the Americana white quilting thread for the quilting. And I am using a little assist from some beeswax because when you're hand quilting, especially the way I do it, it does seem to get all twisted, so that helps a little bit. And for the echo quilting and the additional quilting that I'm adding now, I am I am putting it on a hoop so that I can get those little pieces, little sections done efficiently. The frame did a great job for being able to do the large sections and large continuous lines. It did hold it very square. And so now I'm not as concerned about using the hoop for other sections. And once I'm able to get the blue lines off and have it do a little bit of a press, I'm not intending to iron it so it's completely flat and straight. What I want to do is just get some of the wrinkles out in the border and also some of those little puckers that are there. Be able to sit them down so we can pin them, so when we put the hoop on, they don't move. So that's where we are with this project. We are very close. In the last week, I have gotten a lot of hand quilting done because I was in a good status of this that I could just move forward and quilt and make some decisions on the fly as I was quilting, and it came together very nicely. I think maybe by the next time we meet on this, I should have all of the stuff. Well, I know I'll have everything inside done, and I should be far enough along on the quilting on the outside to go ahead and put the binding on. Even if I don't get all of this quilting done on the outside, if I can get just the one little row around, even if it needs some more, then the binding can still go on and the quilting can come later if need be. I'm not sure it's going to need that, but we could if we need to. And this is another case of a project that you think you're done with hand quilting, but when you put it out and you look at it, the effect that you're looking for, or the effect that you thought you were going to get, is not what you get. So you need to look at how to adjust that, and sometimes that means more quilting. So maybe we'll name this video More Quilting. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us and staying with us through this project, Miss Kelly. It is an applique piece with hand quilting. We're almost done with it, and I'm still very happy with the project. I think it's just a beautiful design. It's got great, vibrant colors, and that always excites me a bit. So join us next time, and hopefully that will be the one where we finish this one off. If you like this video, if you like this project and you want to see more, check out the playlist here on our channel. And be sure to give us a thumbs up for the video if you liked it, and be sure to subscribe. We always welcome new subscribers. We're happy to hear your ideas and your questions on the projects. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time here at the Shamrock Quilt Studio.